With the World Cup coming to an end and college football right around the corner, I decided to take 128 FBS teams and put them in a World Cup format. Now, there will not be any gameplay in this video, but I am going to go through all the brackets and teams and stuff like that and explain how this is all going to work out. So like I said, we do have 128 teams competing. 10 teams were left out. Also, if I didn't mention this before, this is in the new college football video game, College Football 27. Standard World Cup rules and format, 4 teams to a group and everyone will play each other. Overtimes will not be played till round 4, so if teams are tied in the 4th quarter, that will count as a tie and it'll be 1 point for each team. Going off of that, wins are 3 points and losses are 0 points. And then after the group stage, it'll go to 64 and then it'll kind of just follow a March Madness route. Once we get to the round of 64, the teams will all be based on overall wins, overall in the game, total points, and then offense and defensive overall if there's that much of a tiebreaker. So yeah, we're gonna go through the teams that we have for all the groups. Let's get to it. So the way that I did this was literally just a spin the wheel generator I found online of all 130 FBS teams. As you can see, we have 8 groups here, the first 8 groups. There's 32 groups total, and like I said, it'll just be the top 2. I know the World Cup this year had the best 8, or the best 8 third place teams, but this will just be the top 2 teams in every group. So Group A, we're looking at Army, USC, Arkansas, North Texas. I think USC has a clear path to be first. I think though North Texas can sneak into that second spot and be part of Group A to that move on. In Group B, we have FIU, TCU, Fresno State, and UNLV. This is kind of an interesting group because there's no really major team. Obviously TCU in there, which I do think they will move on. I also think UNLV will move on from Group B. Next, Group C, we have Rice, Northwestern, Utah State, and Kansas State. This is also kind of a funky little group, like power major team. Obviously, Kansas State is and Northwestern, but Northwestern obviously not a great team in the Big Ten. I do think it'll be Kansas State and Utah State coming out of Group C. Group D, we have New Mexico, Notre Dame, Navy, and Wake Forest. This is also an interesting group because Notre Dame, clear favorite, I would assume. And then kind of, I don't really know if there's necessarily much separation between the other 3. I'm going to say Wake Forest just because they're a power conference team, but who knows, New Mexico or Navy could surprise us. Next in Group E, we have Southern Miss, Texas, Oklahoma State, and USF. This group is really interesting to me because Oklahoma State, whole new team, whole new roster. Obviously, I think Texas is going to be the front runner, but USF being mixed in with this group is going to make for a very interesting game between USF and Oklahoma State. I think that'll definitely be a tiebreaker game. Going on with Group F, we have Air Force, West Virginia, Ball State, Washington. I think it's pretty obvious what 2 teams are going to make it out of here. I would assume Washington, West Virginia, but I could be wrong. You never know. Over to Group G, kind of the same thing as Group F, Hawaii, Illinois, Baylor, and Temple. I would assume Illinois and Baylor will move on from this, but you never know. Group H, we have Western Kentucky, Virginia Tech, Louisiana Lafayette, and Purdue. This group could also be kind of interesting. I would assume Virginia Tech will move on. I don't think Purdue is going to make it out. I think it'll be Western Kentucky if I had to guess. Next, we're going to go to Group I. We're going to have Bowling Green, Colorado, Kentucky, and Virginia. This is one of the few groups that has 3 Power 4 conference teams. I'm going to go right now. I'd say Virginia and Colorado. I don't think Kentucky's going to be able to beat both of those teams. They might get one of them, but I think they could all beat each other, but I think Colorado and Virginia will make it out of this group. Next, over to Group J, we have Troy, Maryland, NC State, Tulsa. Troy, I feel like, could be an interesting team, just because I know that they're one of the better teams in their conference this year as well. If I had to guess right now, I'd say NC State and Troy. NC State, another one of those teams though that can get upset, like we saw. I think it was last year they lost to ECU in real life, of course. This is obviously just in a game, but yeah. Next in Group K, we have Ohio, Miami, Florida, South Carolina, and UTEP. Miami, Florida, I think obviously a clear favorite to make it out of here. And then I think Ohio is going to upset South Carolina and make it to the round of 64. We have Group L, we have Appalachian State, Boise State, Nebraska, and Duke. This is also a very interesting group because Duke obviously almost made the playoff last year. I don't know their overall rating off the top of my head. I think Nebraska and Boise State are going to be the 2 that make it out. Group M, we have Missouri State, Pittsburgh, James Madison, and Michigan State. Also another one of those groups that's kind of just like James Madison was in the playoff last year. I don't know their overall in the game this year, but I would assume Pittsburgh, and I'm going to say James Madison upsets Michigan State, makes it out of Group M. Heading on to Group N, we have FAU, UCLA, Boston College, and Miami, Ohio. This one's just weird because UCLA and Boston College, obviously not the greatest Power 4 conference teams. Truthfully, I have no idea who's going to make it out of this group. I would say UCLA, and maybe I'm going to take Miami, Ohio, just because I think that they are more of a complete team. Moving on, next we have Group O, Central Michigan, Stanford, Ohio State, and Arizona State. Ohio State, Arizona State, the two standouts to me. I would assume that they move on. Group P, we have Old Dominion, Alabama, Charlotte, and Florida State. Another one of these groups that's kind of like, I feel like Alabama, Florida State, clear favorites here. Don't really see much of a challenge in this group for Florida State and Alabama. So yeah, moving on to the next set of teams with Group Q, we have Southern Alabama, Mississippi State, Georgia Southern, and Indiana. Georgia Southern and Southern Alabama, I don't think that either one of them really has much of a shot against Mississippi State. If literally any other, I don't know, if like a weird kind of sneaky, like if the USF was in here, then I would pick them in Indiana, but for the sake of it, I'm going to pick Mississippi State and Indiana just because I don't see Georgia Southern or South Alabama getting past Mississippi State. Group R, we have Jacksonville State, Auburn, Kent State, and Arizona. I would assume Auburn and Arizona will move on from Group R. In Group S, we have San Jose State, Oregon, Florida, and Louisville. This is kind of what I would call a death group. If you guys watched the World Cup, you know that France's group was kind of called the death group because they had France, Senegal, Norway, and I believe Iraq. This is very similar to how I would relate that to the actual World Cup. I would assume Oregon and Louisville, but Florida, obviously a very good team as well. Well, I shouldn't say very good team, but obviously they could be a very dangerous team in Group S. I don't think San Jose State has literally any shot. I think that they'll lose all three games. Next in Group T, we have Sacramento State, who's new to the game, Rutgers, Tennessee, and Memphis. I'm going to take Tennessee and Memphis to move on from this one. I don't think Rutgers is very good in the game, obviously, or in real life. So I'm going to take Tennessee and Memphis to move on from Group T. Group U, we have Colorado State, Georgia, North Dakota State, and BYU. BYU and Georgia is going to be a very, very good game, obviously. And I think both those teams will move on. I don't think we'll have much of a struggle in Group U. Group V, we have Georgia State, Kansas, Washington State, and Vanderbilt. This is another one of those teams where I think Kansas is the for sure front runner, but then after them, I think it's a toss-up between Washington State and Vanderbilt. Whoever wins that game is probably going to move on to the next round. Going on to Group W, we have Arkansas State, California, Toledo, and Oregon State. This is another one of those groups where it's like all of these teams I feel like are kind of bad. Arkansas State has been sneaky over the past few years, but they lost their quarterback. So I don't really know necessarily how they're going to be this year in the game even really. Toledo also seems to be sneaky good most years. If I had to guess right now, I would say Toledo and California. But this will be another interesting group to watch. Group X, we have a very, very entertaining group. We have Wyoming, Penn State, Houston, and Missouri. This group might even be more chaotic than Group S, which was the Oregon, Florida, Louisville one. Because I think Houston could beat Penn State. I think Houston could beat Missouri, but I could also see any of those teams beating anyone. Don't think Wyoming has much of a chance, but it'll be interesting to see which two of those teams makes it out. To our last and final set of groups. For Group Y, we have East Carolina, Iowa, Utah, and Ole Miss. This is also another one where it's like there's three possible teams that could make it out between Iowa, Utah, and Ole Miss. I'm going to say Utah and Ole Miss move out of Group Y. But I would not be shocked if Iowa pulls off an upset and moves on to the round of 64. Group Z, we have Tulane, Texas Tech, UMass, and SMU. I've been kind of back and forth between SMU and Tulane, but I think Tulane's going to beat SMU, so Tulane and Texas Tech make it out of Group Z. Then we move on to Group 1A, which has New Mexico State, Cincinnati, UConn, and Oklahoma. I'm going to pick Cincinnati and Oklahoma. I don't think Cincinnati's very good, but I think they're better than New Mexico State and UConn, so I think they're going to make it out of Group 1A. Group 1B, we have Buffalo, Michigan, Nevada, and Georgia Tech. I don't see Michigan or Georgia Tech struggling with Buffalo or Nevada, so I'm going to take Michigan and Georgia Tech to move out of Group 1B. Then we have Group 1C, Eastern Michigan, Texas A&M, Iowa State, Kennesaw State. Iowa State has an entirely new roster this year. I'm still going to stick with them to at least get out of their own group, as well as Texas A&M, so I have Texas A&M and Iowa State moving out of Group 1C. Group 1D, it's UAB, LSU, Wisconsin, North Carolina. I would assume LSU and North Carolina or LSU and Wisconsin, but I just don't know, because they're, again, Wisconsin and North Carolina, they're both Power 4 teams, but they're not very good Power 4 teams. So I feel like that'll be whoever wins that head-to-head matchup is going to move on to the next round. Group 1E, we have Texas State, Syracuse, ULM, USF. This group might be the worst group that we have in this entire bracket. None of these teams are probably even above a 75 overall in the game, I can't imagine. I am going to pick Texas State to move on with USF, or UCF. There's something about this group just makes me not even want to look at it. The last group we have Minnesota, Coastal Carolina, Clemson, and Middle Tennessee. I'm going to take Clemson and Minnesota to move on out of Group 1F. But yeah, so that's going through all the teams that are in with their brackets and everything, or with their groups. I will be posting every group's games on separate videos, so every single group will have one separate video of all their games. I probably won't show too much of the gameplay unless it's a close game, then I might a little bit, of course. But yeah, so this is my first video on this channel as well, so if you're watching this, you want to come back, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Yeah, we're just going to see who ends up winning this. If it were to be a real life thing, see what the outcome would be. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.